Stick with us till the end of the video today. There's great information on how you can sign up for that Vanguard giveaway. So check it out. Hi, this is JP Morgan and Lars Lindstrom. We're here for another episode of Trends from the Trenches. Our idea with this little segment is to give you current things that are happening as we see it, as we shoot, as we're working each and every day, and then answer your questions from the last episode that we have, which we'll absolutely do, and just see where that takes us. So, Lars.
Yeah?
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
I think you know.
I do know.
All right. Well, good. Now we got that out of the way.
Now that we're done with that.
Trends from the trenches.
Trends from the trenches. So what's the hottest thing happening in video world right now?
Okay. The thing I'm most excited about is the Metabones speed booster for the Blackmagic cinema camera that was just announced. So basically, you've got this Blackmagic camera, which has a crop factor of about 2.4. So if you got, some micro four thirds lenses, those be kind of about the focal lengths you're looking at. But what the speed booster does is it basically just increases your aperture by either 1 1/3 or 1 2/3 stops and makes the lenses sharper. So if you have a 50 millimeter lens, it essentially becomes a 28 millimeter lens with a 1 2/3 speed boost. So if you have a 50 millimeter 1.2 on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, you now have a 0.74 aperture on a lens, which is the fastest prime lens out there on the market.
And it goes back to the aspect ratio of cinema aspect ratio, right?
A Super 35 cinema aspect ratio.
That's unheard of. That's like in every step of the process you're winning. You gain more aperture, you gain more sharpness. Yep. And it brings it back to the correct aspect ratio.
Super 35.
Super 35, which that's absolutely. So what are these, like $1,000, $1 billion?
No, the price point right now is about $400 to $500 on these things. I think $490 is what they're pricing them
Why
at.
are they making this for the Blackmagic? Not that Blackmagic is an interesting camera. It just has a lot of limitations. I mean, it's a great camera and shoots RAW, which is one of the major advantages.
And that's the answer right there, is that it shoots RAW.
Yeah.
Here's a camera that really, the first time I played with it, I kind of went, really? Like it felt very clunky. It was just a really awkward shape for a camera, but it shoots RAW, and the images that they're getting if they take it through the coloring process are great. If you shoot directly 422, that's a different story. Not my favorite camera, but yeah, it's RAW capability, 2.5K cinema camera, and now with the speed booster, you really take advantage of a sensor that's great. You can get an incredible low light aperture on those lenses, and it's sharper, which is wild. So right now the limitation is you can't use Canon lenses on the adapter. It's only meant for Nikon lenses at the moment, since Canon lenses need electricity to change the iris.
Yeah.
And they haven't quite been able to figure out how to power these adapters yet. That's in my mind a small limitation. That's the next step.
Yeah.
So I would assume that eventually, pretty soon in the near future, that will be the next step, is how do we get electricity through these things so we can use Canon lenses.
Well, that's very cool, and it's the application to other platforms is what seems interesting to me.
Yeah, if you can adapt a 7D to a full frame sensor and plus gain a stop of light, now we're talking.
I mean, the stop of light. I mean, people are going to start putting these things on their regular cameras just because you gain a stop of light.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Can you do that? No, you can't do that, can you?
I don't know.
If you put it on your regular lens on a full frame, no.
Yeah.
But it would be cool if you could do that.
It would be. It would be cool.
Yeah.
So the other interesting thing is that Canon, for their cinema camera line, just released a new firmware update on their C100 and C300 that increases the ISO from 20,000, which is already stupid and incredibly high, to 80,000, which is even more stupid and more incredibly high. So we took a little look at one of the tests that was done, and we think that 80,000, I think that 80,000 wasn't really usable. But again, like you said, it's what's your application?
Well, it becomes relevant to what you're doing. I mean, if you're in a really bad situation and you really need to get a shot, I mean, it's fascinating. A really bad shot of the last cup of coffee Elvis Presley drank is worth billions of dollars, whereas a really amazing shot of Elvis Presley all through his career is not worth near as much. So when you need to get a shot and you have the ability to do it, it really becomes a tool you can use. And sometimes you're just in that situation. I don't have a lot of light, I've got to do this, and it's worth the compromise.
Yeah. One video you and I saw at NAB this year was they were doing, I can't remember who it was, there was a DP that showed some of the nighttime scenes with the Canon C300.
Yes.
With a 20,000 ISO. And that was beautiful, but it was a little underlit.
It was.
You can't expect a full moon as beautiful as it is to give you a full exposure. But, you know.
It's pretty bright, though. It's pretty amazing.
It was amazing. But my thought is, you know, that is the future, is being able to have enough light from a full moon to get a proper exposure. And 80,000 ISO is the right step.
But even that, remember, full moon's a single light source.
Yeah.
It still has pretty deep shadows. You know, it just has to.
Yeah.
I mean, in the 50s, they made cars, they put fins on them, they do this, that, you know, and that's to get people to step up the next, you know, then it became about safety. Well, this car's more safe. Cameras are going through now. It's better ISO ratings.
Yeah.
It's, you know, the ability. So that's where that's the frontier that we're pushing with cameras right now. That's the area that they can sell. They can say, you know what, it's worth buying this camera because you can, basically, you can cut your lighting package in half because you can push your ISO one stop. And one stop cuts your entire lighting package in half. Fascinating, the implication that ISO has on the process. So. You
and I did a shoot in Austin, I think, when we shot that, it was a dentist, and we needed to light up a house, and it was nighttime, and the sun had completely gone down. We took a 1,000 watt LED panel, and we backed it up about 50 feet from the house, and just blasted it, took the diffusion off, and we had an exposure for the entire house.
We did.
You know, and that you kind of look at that example right there, and I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
One of the interesting things that happened in the photo world and has been going on for a while is this need for portable power, and I think Dynalight's new XP800 is probably one of the more interesting solutions out there. It's a simple pack. You can power any of your strobes off from it. It gives you about 1,200 watt seconds worth of power. You can't run a 1,600 watt second pack off from it, but you can 1,200. I thought that's really interesting. It's noteworthy just because I shoot a lot with portable strobes, and it makes it so we can bring a couple of these. You don't have to haul a generator. It makes it very useful. So
yeah, we even used it as a kind of a weight to hold down our stand.
Yeah,
too.
we used it as a weight tied on stand and do that a lot. Yeah. So you sent me a link for that generator.
Yeah.
That Hyundai.
Yeah.
Hyundai generator.
2,200
watt. $500.
Yeah, $570, I think. Yeah.
That's a pretty decent. I mean, that's half price of the Honda. Although Hondas are pretty hard to beat. I read the reviews on the Hyundai, and they said it's a little louder, not quite as nicely made.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Half price.
Half price. All right, let's go on to some other thoughts here from questions we've got in the past. The very first one is we wanted to do a clarification about the SeaFast Card.
Which I didn't know. Apparently you can't use the new the compact, or the SeaFast 2.0 cards that are coming out. I didn't realize that you can't actually use them in your regular DSLRs. I'm not really sure the technology behind it, but apparently there's something electronically that it's going to need its own specific system built for SeaFast 2.0 cards.
So is it the same size as a compact
same size,
flash?
yeah.
Oh, so you can put it in the slot, but it just won't run your.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they'll probably fix that. I mean, eventually.
Well, you know, I think it's just a matter of a firmware update.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
We'll see
if it does require some sort of additional electricity, then it is going to require a different camera system. But
yeah.
That's something I didn't realize and something to take note on.
Yeah. Great. You know, this next question came from one of our viewers, and I think it's a great question. He talks about how are photographers making that transition into video? What are they doing? And that process. I love this topic. I was at Photo Plus a few weeks ago. I sat with 3 high-end photographers. I didn't sit with them. I was in the audience. They didn't allow me to sit with them. But anyway, I was there. It was fascinating, the conversation, because they're all talking about how, well, they're making the transition because of this DSL platform, and I'm a DP, and I'm doing all this kind of stuff with commercials and high-end stuff, and I want to shoot features and all this stuff. And I'm listening to these 3 going, you guys are amazingly talented individuals. But the only one on the panel was the gal that was on the panel. She's going, well, I shoot on DSLRs because I can go out by myself and I shoot a biographical piece about a man and his life and what he does, and it goes up on the website, and she's got Pulitzer Prizes for the work she's doing because that platform matches that kind of work. And she was, I thought, had the best perspective there. As photographers, I get this sense, you get this sense that, oh, one day, oh, hey, this camera does motion. Like, we just found motion. Like, somehow we discovered that cameras can make motion. I mean, the motion picture industry's been around forever. We did not discover that industry. But what we have discovered is there's a niche that is developing probably rapidly than anything else out there right now, and that's the internet application for video. YouTube being the #2 search engine out there, everyone wants to see it. They want to hear who you are, they want to see what you do, they want to be comfortable with their dentist, their doctor, the builder, everything. They want to see it on YouTube. So there's created this huge market that just about every business in your hometown and my hometown are trying to take advantage of. That's where photographers can make a transition into the video and the film market using the DSLR, which is a simple a bit of equipment you need to pick up to understand sound better, to be able to shoot more stable, and do some things that will really dress up your video. You can make a transition, and I think that's the market. We're not all going to become DPs. We're not going to become the next, Francis Ford Coppola's. You're going to find an application in the wedding world, in that biographical business kind of profiles that you can shoot. That world is ripe, and it's growing, and it's going to grow more and more in the coming years. Get yourself into that market. That's where really the transition needs to be made. I have 2 videos on the Slanted lens that go through step by step the equipment you need and how to make that transition. They're about a year old there, but it's really DSLR Basics and DSLR Basics 2. Go to those 2, it'll give you some great information. I looked through them just recently. The information's holding. It's pretty solid. I mean, there's new stuff out there. Sliders have become more compact. Cranes have become more compact, so you can really have very simple camera packages. Lighting has grown. With basically Photoflex's new single light LED, I think we're going to see lighting just go into a whole different world now. It's the big LED panels. They're going to be looked at as a thing of the past real soon. A single LED with a light source that you can modify with softboxes and all that kind of thing. That's where it's all going. And the North Star light that Photoflex has, the first one out there, is really at least the first one that has a 1K capability that doesn't cost you $1 billion. Because Aries got several of them, don't they?
Yeah, and they cost about $1 billion.
Yeah, they're $2,000 or $3,000 for a single light.
I think Mole Richardson also has a couple. They're also pretty. The North Star light from Photoflex is the most affordable at this point.
Yep.
And I mean, you and I have used it quite a bit on our shoots, and I love the quality of light we're getting those. Especially for me, coming from a cinematic world, I didn't really realize the power in modifiers. Being able to put a reflector on it and increase it by 2 stops. Put a softbox on it and then put a grid on top of that, so it's just a very focused, beautiful source of light that I got instantly, with this North Star light that I can't really do with many other lights, hot lights in the industry.
Well, we just used it last week when we shot the executive at the bank. We have a whole wall of windows, so we're thinking, well, there's a huge wall of windows here. And everyone who look at the image in the interview will think, well, he was just lit by those windows. But no, we took a North Star with a softbox on it, slid it in, and cleaned all the highlights up on his face, or the shadows, opened his face up. It looks beautiful. It looks really pretty.
Really nice catch light. Really nice highlight.
Do you have other thoughts on that?
I would say, just as if you're trying to figure out, if you're a photographer trying to make your way into the video world, my biggest piece of advice I could give, because I think the biggest difference is shutter. So in the photo world, you can throw that shutter just about anywhere you want. You can really think with your aperture in mind and then put that shutter where you need it to be. Video is a lot different. You keep your shutter at a 50th of a second, and that's going to be the hardest thing to get a hold of. From there, you change your ISO and your aperture. If you still want that shallow depth of field, you're probably going to need to invest in something called ND, or neutral density. Pick up a filter. You can get a variable ND filter. You can even find one on Amazon for really cheap. They're not the best. They destroy your contrast and your saturation, but I mean, if you just want to play around and kind of see what they do, I think they're like $13 variable ND filters.
Schneider has one that's like $450, but it's a 13-stop ND variable filter, and it's a gorgeous piece of glass, but it's $500. Just to clarify on shutter, when Lars says leave it at 50th and just forget it, that's if you're shooting it at 24 frames a second. So it's going to be twice your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 60 frames a second, doing high speed, you're going to want to go to 1/25th of a second.
Yep.
So just but go through that DSLR basics. It'll help you kind of understand that better. And if you have more questions, send them in. We'll keep answering those. So. One of our listeners asked us, I want to start a rental business. What should I rent? Lars?
Well, we were talking about this right before we started the show. I I don't think I have an answer. If that's going to be completely up to you. It's up,
It's so broad. It's so hard.
If I were to tell you, oh, definitely the C100. The Canon C100 is the way to go if you're looking to rent something. That's one person's opinion, and while that may work for certain applications, it might not work for you. So that is definitely something you just have to research. It could be a DSLR. It could be a bunch of T2Is. You could buy 40 T2Is and be the one guy that rents a time lapse, one of those things that spins all the way around.
Matrix.
There's I think one company in Los Angeles right now that owns 65 D Mark IIs, and that's all they do. They're super expensive. You hire them out for a day, and they come and they do the matrix thing. For your shoots, and that's all they do.
You really need to look at your market, where you live, and what your market share is. Who can you reach from a business standpoint? You really need to go, who do I have access to? And how can I exploit that? Lens Pro to Go that ships out all the equipment for weddings and things, well, for anything, but weddings is a great place to get the lens you actually need. They have a much different camera package for that, but they've got everything. Lens Pro to Go, they've got all the high-end cameras and everything. But just pick a market area that you want to go after, that you have access to, and do a little market research to figure out, who it is that I can reach, and what will they pay, and can I make this profitable? Then you've got an application. You've got to start renting it. Know that this equipment turns over really fast. I mean, the stuff that's amazing. What's the camera you're about to buy? You're about to buy one to put in your rental.
Yeah, the Area Mirror.
That's a new camera coming out.
It is. Hasn't come out yet, and you kind of have to weigh the risk factor a little bit. You just have to figure out what your market is and who you're going to be able to sell to, and I'm terrified about it.
How much is that camera?
We don't know yet, but it's probably going to be about the $35,000-$40,000 price range.
Yeah, you got to really know where you're going to rent that in the market. But Lars is connected with that industry, so he has an avenue, an outlet there. He can rent it to his own jobs. He can rent it to other cinematographers for their jobs. So that's a market he's got access to. It really, in business, is about access. You can either create access with money or time by mailers and calls and what have you, or you have access by virtue of who you run with. So you got to decide who do you have access to, and how can you apply that to the equipment you're going to rent. And that's one thought. I'm sure there's a million others.
The most important thing to realize and remember is that cameras are tools, and each camera has their different tool. You can buy a $40,000 cinema camera or a $1,200 DSLR, and both are going to have their specific application and needs.
Yeah. Well, like the camera you got, the mirror, did I say it right?
Mm-hmm.
Mirror?
Area Mirror.
Area Mirror. I mean, you're not going to use that on weddings.
Not at all.
So
I've got my Mark III, and I got a 6D and a 7D and a Mark II for weddings, and I'm not ever going to bring out a red or an Area Mirror to those weddings. I just won't. One of the other comments on the channel was about 4K and the ability to crop. And so I thought it would be somewhat beneficial to talk a little bit about the reason I don't prefer cropping in on my video images is not because of pixels. I don't really care about pixels as much as I care about what the lens was built for. So you've got a lens that's built to cover a specific size on the sensor, and as soon as you start cropping in, it's not so much the pixels you're cropping in, it's the lens. So you just lose sharpness real fast. So if you take a 50mm lens and you make it 100mm in theory, then you start to lose a lot of that sharpness.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up. And you may think it's going to. Well, it's 4K, but it's in comparison to your other shot. You've taken and you've dropped it in, and so it's going to lose. The quality's not going to feel the same.
No.
Yeah, I don't. Plus, it's on the same axis. It's just like jumping in and out. And the question was in our interview here: do we just shoot? Can you shoot just 4K and just crop in and out to be able to give us a 2-camera kind of setup from a single camera? But we run 2 cameras here. We got an A and a B camera, so one's on a broad 2-shot, and the other one's going to be tight shots of each of us, so pan back and forth. And that it's a much better setup. For one, you get the little panning of the camera as it goes across, if you want to use that. And secondly, that's just the quality's the same. Those two match each other when you put them together.
Yeah.
So, let me read this one question here. It says, any chance we could hear about how you guys see the commercial industry? Since there's talk that budgets and demand have gone way down, just wanted to get your perspectives as well as your comments you have about young photographers starting down your path. I absolutely understand this thought. Young photographers are going to start down the path in still photography. Still photography is still a pretty tough business, but it's fascinating to me. As tough as it seems, it still is an area where people need photographers. We don't sell images anymore. I mean, do you know how many images were shot last year and placed on Instagram? Something like 10, well, I don't even know, it was 10 billion or something.
A day.
Yeah, a day.
It's
well,
insane.
I mean, it's
yeah.
insane the number of images. We have no shortage of images in our society at all. What we have a shortage of is a photographic experience and images, quality images that tell great stories. That's the shortage. And so when a person says, I want a family picture, they really need to have two things. They need to have a competent experience where they get a great image, and they need to have a great experience getting there. Nowadays, you sell the journey. A photographer, a young photographer, sells the journey as much as they do the final product. So the person's got to feel like they go there and they just have an incredible experience where they enjoy what happens, and it's like it's an event for them. And in the end, they get a great image that they use, that they can, show their family and where they're at this point in their life. So my suggestion to you is work hard on the portfolio, become as unique as you can, but when you do shoots, you've got to sell the experience as much as you do the image.
And I think it's important to remember that it's the attitude on every shoot, because like you mentioned a family portrait. Okay, now your attitude has to be the same when you shoot a family portrait, and it has to be the same when you shoot McDonald's. No matter what scale you're doing, if your attitude is high and you've got that same idea of this is I love, it's about the journey, then you can be a successful photographer. Yeah.
We have a business coaching class that's going to start here in February, and one of the things I talk about is how to reach the market around you, how to create a market. My daughter-in-law, Rachel's a great example. She put pictures of her kids on her blog, like several times a month, and just pictures she was doing of her kids and funny things they were doing in her life and what was interesting. And then she started to expand the people who are looking at her blogs. Her friends are going, hey, I'm loving your pictures, and pretty soon her friends are going, will you take pictures of my kids? And Rachel's going, well, should I charge them? I'm going, yes, you should charge them. You bought the camera, you have the perspective. You're not a high-end photographer yet, but you're growing, you're learning. And so she started charging them, and her blog became the sales engine. And she's now shooting several times a month, and this is within several months this has happened. This isn't over years, and her blog really became what drove her. But now she's going, hey, my light needs to be better. So she's learning how to use different light modifiers so that her images look better when she shoots, and she's progressing, she's growing. She will have a very healthy photo business. She will grow into a very strong photo business if she chooses to. It just depends on how much she wants to do it. But again, it's a matter of she used social media, she got things out there, she kept posting things that were interesting to her that she loved, pictures of her kids, and as she did that, the experience grew with other people. You kind of have a similar story with regards to the glide cam. You're an expert using the glide cam, so you applied that to weddings, and people are going, wow, this is incredible, this is different.
That's exactly what it was, yeah.
So now you're making billions of dollars in the glide cam wedding business.
Billions of dollars.
It's amazing. I do think that you're really wise if you'll learn some video, because I think there's a great market out there, and I'm talking a low-end market for video shooting, and I think that's a great avenue you should kind of put with your still work. So if you want to do portraits and weddings or even commercial work, you talk to every single person you know, at church, at soccer games with your kids, at events at school. Everybody. And the way you start this conversation is you go, hey, what do you do for a living? I mean, that's a question. Everyone talks, well, I work for Disney. I'm in their accounting department, and I do it. That's really cool. How long have you done that? Ask them a bunch of questions about themselves. Eventually, they'll go, what do you do for a living? Well, funny you should ask. I'm a photographer, and I shoot, and this is, and this is what I love to do, and this is my passion.
My favorite question to ask is, well, what's your video presence? Yeah.
What's your video presence? That's so true.
Yeah.
I had that conversation with a guy last night, major builder, and I'm going, do you have anything online, video online? Why would I do that? Why would I do that? They're going, because people find you through the internet. They find you through YouTube. And we talked for 30, 40 minutes, and he's going, I need to have video online.
Yeah.
I made a sell last night, and just like, this guy has a lot, has a great perspective in the market, is a major high-end builder. He needs a video presence.
Yeah.
He does. Our next question is shooting an event. And it's a pretty broad question, how to shoot it, what questions to ask, how to do the interviews. great video on the Slanted Lens called Shooting an Event, which really gives you some great information in there. I'll just give you one tip that I think is really out of the box, a very valuable item. Make yourself a photo ID. You can have your company name on it and your picture on it, but it says Photo Pass. And 9/10 of the people that will harass you will not bother you if you just wear that around your neck for the evening. And even if you're authorized to be there by it, doesn't matter who authorized you. The problem with an event is you got 1 million people, and you got people who've come from different organizations that are either sponsoring the event or celebrities who are there, and pretty soon there's this whole crew of people trying to cover the event, and no one knows who anyone is. And so if you make yourself look official, like, oh, well, I'm supposed to be at this event, then everyone else they're not gonna bother you. But if you look like you maybe shouldn't be at the event, or they'll start to harass you.
Yeah.
So simple thing, get a monopod, get an on-camera, set your microphone on your hot shoes so you've got the ability to pick up some audio bites here and there as you circulate through the event. And but then know that you're going to need to get something where you set up and just do interviews if that's your goal. When you ask questions, it's just, in my mind, you've got to decide what's the outcome. If the outcome is, well, I need to understand the celebrity and kind of the charity aspect of this event, well, then write your questions with this. You know, what caused you to be interested in this charity? What caused you to decide to spend your time here? Tell us how these people have affected your life. Try to ask them emotional questions, where they're open-ended questions, that they're going to talk about their feelings, their emotions, things that make them excited about life. You know, that's the same rule for anything when you do an interview. What's the end desire?
My one piece of advice for interviews is to ask the question and shut up. So, and even because I'll say like, okay, when I do weddings, I say, how did you meet so-and-so? And they'll say, at a bar. And that'll be their first instinct, is just to answer the question with one sentence. But when you don't say anything, you know, so a lot of people will go, oh, okay, and they'll move on to the next question. But that's not what I want to hear. I want to hear, you know, I want to know the details. What was the temperature? What time of the year was it? You know, what was she wearing? So I just sit back and shut up and wait for them to kind of realize, oh, he's not satisfied with that answer. So they keep talking, and eventually you've got some really great material.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
The magic lantern hack. I mean, the question is, when are you going to talk about the magic lantern and some of the different hacks that they have for your cameras? I've never hacked one of my cameras. I'm always worried about the
breaking the processor.
Yeah, you're breaking the processor, or you lose your warranty and all this stuff. And quite frankly, let me give you one perspective. And then Lars knows more about this than I, and he'll talk at length. But the reason I don't want to shoot RAW on my DSLRs is because I don't want to shoot RAW on my DSLRs. I don't want a workflow where there's another layer where I've got to take it in and make all. I don't want to do that. It's back in the days when we used to shoot film, and then we'd have to go into telecine and transfer it all. And you know, we'll shoot, and I try to get it as close as I can get it. Then we're going to go in, we'll color correct it before we post it, and we're done. And now there's great advantages to RAW. Don't get me wrong, there are great advantages. When I'm shooting something very serious, commercial, what have you, that's a whole different story. But for most of my DSLR work, I'm wanting to make that workflow pretty simple.
Yeah. You know, I shoot Red quite a bit, and Red got the RAW capabilities. And it's wonderful for post-production. It's really great. But right now, the Canon DSLR hack is not fast for post-production. It does require extra steps. You need to bring it into your coloring software first, and then you need to export once you've got it graded. And I mean, you really have to be very sure that you've got the time in post-production if you're going to shoot RAW on a Canon DSLR. Same thing goes with Blackmagic. And so unless we get programs like Premiere, Adobe's Premiere, that figure out how to bring in your native RAW clips from these cameras and work on the fly like they have with Red RAW RD3 files, I don't really see the point in it either.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. Right. I mean, you get more dynamic range. It's incredibly beautiful, but it's just too slow.
All right. Anything else, Lars, interesting before we go on to our next segment?
No, I'm feeling pretty good.
Me too. It's a good industry. Like this industry.
I like it too.
I think I'll stick with it.
Yeah, you know what? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember to get yourself involved in the Vanguard giveaway. There's many different ways you can enter to win one of these pieces of equipment from Vanguard. So go to theslantedlens.com. You have until midnight on the 20th of December, then we're going to give this all away for Christmas. So go to theslantedlens.com and enter to win one of these great pieces of equipment from Vanguard. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on YouTube. We have a lot of great information coming. We're going to introduce our business coaching class in February. Make sure you follow us so you won't miss out any of the great information that's coming. We have some great things planned for the next year.